The Cowboys are sitting on 2 first-round picks, and the draft war room is about to get wild. But before we dive into every single scenario that could go down on draft night, you need to hit that subscribe button right now because we're dropping Cowboys content the second news breaks, and honestly, we need your support to keep growing this thing. So do me that favor, and let's get into what Dallas might actually do with these picks. Here's the reality that nobody wants to talk about. When you're the team calling around trying to move up, you're almost always overpaying. Maybe not by a ton, but enough that you're giving away value because the other team knows you're desperate for somebody. And Jerry Jones has a history of falling in love with guys and doing exactly that. This year is different, though, because Dallas is holding 2 first-rounders at 12 and 20. They've got a third from San Francisco, a fourth, 3/5, including 2 comp picks, no 6th-rounder, and a 7th, which sounds solid until you realize what they've already mortgaged for the future. The 2027 draft is where it gets scary. They've got the worst of their own, or Green Bay's 1st-rounder, which is reportedly frozen in negotiations, a 2nd, a 3rd, no 4th because that went in the Rashawn Gary deal, no 5th because that was part of the George Pickens trade. They kept their own 6th, but also got another 6th in that Pickens move, plus a 7th, so they're already light on future capital and can't just throw picks around like it's Madden franchise mode. Let's talk about the most viral trade idea floating around right now because you've probably seen it on half the Cowboys sites out there. Dallas jumps up to number 6 overall with the Cleveland Browns. Here's how it would work. The Cowboys send both first-rounders, 12 and 20, and Cleveland sends back 6 in their 2nd-rounder at 39, which means you're moving up 6 spots in round 1, but you lose a pick entirely. You just slide that second first-rounder down to the 2nd round instead. Why would you do this? Because if there's a run on defensive studs early and guys like Travis Hunter or Will Johnson or Abdul Carter or Mason Graham start flying off the board, this guarantees you get one of the absolute top-tier defenders, maybe even somebody like Tyrone McMillan if he's somehow sitting there, and you still have a 2nd-round pick to grab another impact guy. The crazy part is that, according to the trade value chart, this is actually a slight underpay by Dallas. We're talking about the value of a late 4th-rounder. Nothing massive, but the Browns might be desperate enough to take less if they want to grab their offensive tackle and still feel good about it. Cleveland could easily say yes to this if they've got their guy at tackle and don't mind sliding back. And honestly, if the Cowboys can secure someone like Will Johnson or Abdul Carter without giving up the farm, that's the kind of aggressive move this franchise needs to make after getting embarrassed in the playoffs again. But here's what nobody's talking about. You don't have to go all the way to 6 to get your guy. The Kansas City Chiefs at 9 could be a perfect trade partner, and this one is almost dollar for dollar, even on the value chart. No overpay, no getting fleeced, just a clean swap. Dallas sends 12 and their 3rd-rounder at 92. Kansas City sends back 9, and boom, you jump up 3 spots, which could be the difference between getting Caleb Downs or watching Cincinnati snipe him right before your pick. This is the move you make when the board falls weird and there's 1 or 2 defenders you absolutely love, but you're not sure they'll be there at 12. You give up a 3rd-rounder, which honestly is a mid-round pick anyway, and you secure a potential all-pro at 9. Would you do it? Because if I'm in that war room and Downs or Carter is sitting there at 9 and I know one of them won't make it to 12, I'm on the phone immediately. Kansas City might want to slide back and grab an offensive lineman anyway since their line has been a disaster, so this deal makes sense for both sides if the board falls right and the Chiefs aren't in love with whoever's available at 9. Now let's flip the script because not every scenario is about trading up. What if all the top defenders get smoked before 12 and you're sitting there looking at a board full of question marks? That's when you call Minnesota and drop back to 18. And here's the rough framework. The Vikings send 18, a 3rd-rounder, and a 6th. The Cowboys send 12. And you basically pull the parachute and collect assets instead of reaching for a guy you don't love. You might give up the 6th and get a 7th back, or maybe it's a different 3rd-rounder involved. But the point is you fall 6 spots, and you still might end up with one of the top defensive players you were targeting anyway because the run might not be as crazy as everyone thinks. This is the smart play if you walk into the draft with 5 guys you love and 4 of them are gone by pick 10. You don't panic and reach. You slide back and pick up ammunition to build the rest of your roster. The other option, if the board completely nukes and guys like Jahad Campbell and Jalen Walker and all the top linebackers and safeties are gone, is to drop way down from 12. And this is where Kansas City comes back into play, but from the other side. Imagine the Chiefs jump up from 29 and give you 29 and their 2nd-rounder at 40. That gets them 2 top 12 picks if they also trade up from their original spot, or maybe they grab 9 and 12 somehow. Point is, you fall all the way to the end of round 1, but you get back into the 2nd round, which is critical because right now Dallas is looking at pick 20 and then nothing until 92, and that gap is brutal. And the crazy part is there's even a scenario where multiple top defenders fall and you get one at 12, but then you look at 20 and there's another stud sitting there. So what do? You trade up from 20 to 15 and go get him too. This is the dream scenario that probably won't happen, but if it does, you send 20 and your third at 92 to someone like the Jets or the Colts. Maybe you throw in your seventh to sweeten it, and you jump up 5 spots to snag a second elite defender in the same draft. Could you imagine walking away with Will Johnson at 12 and then trading up to 15 for Jahad Campbell or Jalen Walker? That's how you fix a defense that got torched by every competent offense last year. And honestly, if Jerry has any guts left, this is the kind of bold move that would get the fan base fired up again. You could also use 20 and your fifth at 112 to get up to around 17, where the Lions might be willing to deal. Same idea. You're just being aggressive and taking advantage of a weird board where defenders slide more than expected. But let's be real. The most likely scenario is that Dallas takes someone at 12 and then starts looking at trade down options from 20, because that pick is in no man's land, not early enough to guarantee a star, not late enough to feel like a value. If you want to slide back to 26 and pick up a third rounder from Buffalo, you send 20 and they send 26 and they're third at 91. The value is almost identical, and you move back 6 spots while collecting another pick. Now, Buffalo is super tight on draft capital, so they might not want to give up that third, but if they're in love with somebody and think he won't make it to 26, they'll pay up. This is basically the same structure as the Tyler Guyton trade from a few years ago when Dallas moved down from the mid-first to late first and grabbed an extra pick, except this time it's a bit earlier in the draft, so the drop isn't as severe, but you also don't get quite as much back. Still, if you're sitting at 20 and the guys you love are gone, but there's a bunch of solid players in the 20 to 30 range, why not slide back and grab another asset? You could also drop even further from 20 and get back into the second round by dealing with New England. Here's how that looks. The Patriots send 31 and they're second at 63. The Cowboys send 20 and a seventh at 218. And now you've got picks at 12, 31, and 63 instead of 12, 20, and 92. You see how that levels out the gaps and gives you more chances to hit on players? Right now, Dallas is facing a massive dead zone between 20 and 92. That's 72 picks where they're just sitting around watching other teams build their rosters. And if you trade down from 20 to 31 and pick up 63, you cut that gap in half and you get 3 picks in the first 63 selections instead of 2. The downside is you need there to be a bunch of guys you like in that range. You can't just trade back and hope. You've got to have conviction that the value is there. But if the board is deep with defensive backs or linebackers or edge rushers in that range, this is the move that maximizes your chances of landing multiple contributors. Here's where it gets spicy. What if Dallas drops completely out of the first round? Stay with me, because this could actually make sense if Arizona or somebody else wants to jump up for a quarterback. The Cardinals send their second at 33, their third at 65, or whatever their early third is, and maybe a fifth, plus Dallas sends 20, and you slide out of the first round. But you pick up 2 extra picks, and you might even squeeze a 2027 pick out of them if they're desperate for a quarterback. This is the quarterback tax trade, the same kind of deal that happened with Jackson Dart or years ago with Brady Quinn when teams overpay to jump up for a signal caller and the Cowboys can sit back and collect assets. Now, I don't think this year is a great quarterback class, so I don't know if anyone's trading up huge for Jalen Milroe or Quinn Ewers or whoever. But if someone falls in love and thinks their guy won't be there at 33, Dallas is sitting pretty at 20 as the gatekeeper, and you make them pay through the nose to jump you. Let's talk about the later rounds, because Dallas is going to have to make some moves there too. They're way too light on picks to just sit and wait. If they want to move up in the third round, they could package their third at whatever pick they have from San Francisco and their fourth and jump up to around 69, which, yeah, nice, but that's expensive because you're giving up 2 picks to move up a few spots. The only way this makes sense is if a guy you have a second round grade on starts falling and falling and you're sitting there in the third going, we have to go get him before someone else does, and you pull the trigger. I'm thinking like if Anthony Hill somehow slides, or Malachi Lawrence, or one of the nickel corners like Kalen King or Kobe Bryant or Pons, if they're sitting there and you've got them graded way higher, you jump up and grab them, but then you've used your third and your fourth and you don't pick again until the 5th round, and that's a long wait, so you better be right about the guy. Dallas has also done this move before. They love trading up in the 5th round, and you could get back into the 4th round narrowly if you send your first 2 5th rounders, something like 152 and 177 for San Francisco's 4th rounder. Hey, the Niners gave you a third for Leonard Oduz, so maybe they owe you one. And this is basically the same trade they made for Chauncey Golston or Damone Clark in years past. You bundle 2 fifths and jump into the 4th to grab a defender you like. If you send 177 and 180 instead, you get to like the very last pick of the 4th or the very first pick of the 5th. So it's not a massive jump, but it's something. And when you're trying to find rotational pieces and special teams contributors, every spot matters. The problem is they're already light on draft capital overall. They don't have a 6th rounder defender this year, and they've mortgaged a bunch of future picks, so every trade they make has to count. They can't just throw stuff around and hope it works out. So what's the actual answer here? What should the Cowboys do? Honestly, it depends entirely on how the board falls, and that's why you have to go into draft night with a plan for every scenario. If the top defenders are there at 12 and 20, you stand pat and take two studs and call it a win. If there's a run and guys start flying off the board, you get aggressive and trade up to 6 or 9 and secure your guy before it's too late. If the board dies and everyone you love is gone, you trade back and collect picks and play the volume game. The key is not falling in love with one plan and forcing it when the board doesn't cooperate. You've got to be flexible. You've got to have relationships with other GMs so you can get deals done quickly, and you've got to trust your board. The worst thing Dallas could do is sit there at 12 and reach for a guy they don't love just because they feel like they have to use the pick, or sit at 20 and take someone in the second tier when they could slide back and get the same caliber player plus an extra third rounder. This is where Will McClay and the front office earn their money. This is where the draft room chaos turns into either a home run draft or a disaster that sets the franchise back another year. Let me ask you this. Do you want the Cowboys to be aggressive and trade up, or do you think they should trade back and collect picks to fill all the holes on this roster? Because there's an argument for both. If you believe this defense is 1 or 2 stars away from being elite, you go get those stars and worry about depth later. But if you think this team needs 4 or 5 new starters on defense and has to rebuild the secondary and the linebacker room, you trade back and take swings at multiple guys. Personally, I think they have to be aggressive at least once. This fan base is tired of playing it safe and watching other teams go get their guys while Dallas sits back and takes whoever falls. We've seen that movie 100 times, and it ends with Dak scrambling for his life and the defense giving up 40 points to Green Bay. If there's a defender in the top 10 that the coaching staff believes is a cornerstone player, someone who can change the culture of this defense and be an all-pro for the next decade, you go get him. You don't worry about giving up a third rounder or sliding back in the second round. You just go get your guy and live with the consequences. Here's the thing, though, and this is what scares me. Jerry Jones loves the big splash. He loves trading up. He loves the attention and the headlines, but he also has a history of falling in love with the wrong guys and overpaying for players that don't pan out. Remember when they traded up for Morris Claiborne? Remember when they reached for Taco Charlton? I'm not saying don't trade up. I'm saying make sure you're trading up for the right reasons. Make sure your board supports it. Make sure the value is there. Don't just do it because you're bored and you want to make SportsCenter. The trade value chart is there for a reason, and if you're overpaying by more than a 4th rounder or so, you better be damn sure the guy you're getting is worth it. On the flip side, if you're trading back, make sure you're actually getting value. Don't just slide back for the sake of collecting picks. If the picks you're getting are in the 6th and 7th round and basically lottery tickets, you've got to get real assets that turn into real players. And listen, before we wrap this up, if you're getting value from this breakdown and you want more draft content as we get closer to draft night, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're going to be covering every rumor, every trade scenario, every mock draft, and every piece of Cowboys news that drops between now and the end of April. We're grinding to build this channel and give you the best Cowboys content out there, and we can't do it without your support. So subscribe, comment, share this with your Cowboys fan friends, and let's build something here. Now back to the draft. The biggest mistake Dallas could make is being unprepared. If they walk into draft night without having these conversations with Cleveland and Kansas City and Minnesota and Buffalo and New England, if they don't have the framework of these deals already sketched out, they're going to get caught flat-footed when the board falls a certain way, and they'll miss opportunities. You've got to have the trades ready to go, so when pick 8 comes off the board and your guy is still there at 9, you can call Kansas City immediately and execute the deal in 30 seconds before someone else jumps you. The other thing to watch is what other teams are doing. If there's a run on offensive tackles early, that pushes defenders down. If there's a run on wide receivers because teams are desperate for playmakers, that pushes defenders down. And suddenly guys that Dallas thought would be gone at 8 or 9 are sitting there at 12 and they get a steal. Conversely, if teams start going defense heavy early, the board could get wiped out fast and Dallas has to pivot. This is why you can't mock draft your way into a plan. You can't sit there and say, we're taking Will Johnson at 12 no matter what, because what if he's gone at 7? What if he's gone at 4? You've got to have the backup plan and the backup plan to the backup plan and the willingness to trade up or back depending on what happens. I know this sounds like a lot, but this is the reality of modern draft strategy. It's not just about picking the best player available. It's about positional value, team needs, contract situations, future draft capital, and being smarter than the other 31 teams in the room. One more thing I want to hit on, the locker room impact of these moves. If Dallas trades up and gets a star defender, that sends a message to the guys already on the roster that the front office is serious about winning now, that they're not rebuilding, that they're going for it, and that can energize a team that's been stuck in mediocrity for years. On the other hand, if they trade back and collect picks, that tells the veterans, we're not sure we can win with you guys. We need to build depth and take swings. And that can be demoralizing, especially for guys like Micah Parsons and Trevon Diggs, who are in their prime and want to compete for a Super Bowl right now. There's also the cap space angle. If you trade up and take a top 10 pick, that guy's fifth-year option is more expensive than if you take a guy at 20, so you're committing more money down the road. But if he's a star, it's worth it. If you trade back and take multiple picks, you're spreading the cap hits around and building a deeper roster, but you might not get the star player who changes the game. It's all about risk and reward, and the Cowboys have to decide what kind of team they want to be. As we get closer to draft night, the rumors are going to fly. You're going to hear that Dallas is in love with this guy or that guy. You're going to hear trade offers being floated, and most of it is going to be smoke, but some of it will be real. One report said the Cowboys have been doing heavy homework on safeties and linebackers, which makes sense given how bad those position groups were last year. Another report said they've had conversations with teams about moving up from 12, which also makes sense if there's a guy they love, but until Roger Goodell announces the pick, it's all speculation. What we do know for sure is that Dallas has 2 first-rounders, limited future capital, and a desperate need to fix the defense. So they're going to be active in some capacity, whether that's trading up, trading back, or standing pat and taking 2 guys at 12 and 20. Here's my final take. If the Cowboys want to win now, if they want to convince Dak Prescott and Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb that this franchise is serious about competing for championships, they have to be aggressive. That doesn't mean reckless. It means calculated aggression. It means knowing your board, knowing the value, and having the guts to pull the trigger when the opportunity is there. If Will Johnson or Abdul Carter or Caleb Downs is sitting there at 9 and it costs you 12 and a third to go get him, you do it. You don't hesitate. You don't overthink it. You just do it. If the board falls apart and all your guys are gone, you trade back and build depth and trust that your scouting department can find contributors in the 20s and 30s. But whatever you do, don't be passive. Don't let the draft happen to you. Make the draft happen for you. This is the most important draft in years for Dallas. They've got 2 first-rounders for the first time in forever. They've got massive holes to fill, and they've got a fan base that's tired of excuses and ready to see results. The war room better be ready, the phone lines better be open, and Jerry Jones better be willing to make the moves that turn this draft into a franchise-altering event instead of just another year of mediocrity. So let me know in the comments, what trade do you want to see the Cowboys make? Do you want them to go up to 6 and get a guaranteed stud? Do you want them to trade back and collect picks? Do you want them to stand pat and take 2 guys at 12 and 20? Would you give up both first rounders to get into the top 5, or is that too rich for your blood? Drop your take below. Let's have a real conversation about this, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, because we're going to be all over this draft from now until the moment Dallas makes their picks. This is the kind of offseason that can define the next 5 years of Cowboys football, and we're going to cover every second of it, so make sure you're locked in with us. The draft is coming, the trades are going to happen, and Dallas has a chance to get this right. Let's just hope they don't screw it up.